So this one is a bit of an odd case. When I first did the poll for the next part of PV Secrets, Series 3 was in the lead for a while, so I started writing a script for that. But then, the votes swung in the opposite direction, bringing us to where we are now. The first, and currently only special if you don't count the Christmas Killer, Gigabyte was an idea that I had been toying with since the end of Series 1, when Strawberry Lord commented that the special's titular character would have been his favourite if he had some kind of backstory. One obvious problem with making a prequel like this is that it was explicitly stated in Series 1 that there had never been a camera crew sent into the valley to record its wildlife until that first season. The solution was a plot point of archived security footage from cameras that were still active after the lab they were built for was destroyed. This will also be used in the Monochrome special, or anything else that takes place before Series 1. Because of this, I tried to move the camera tripod around less when I filmed this special, only rotating and pivoting it rather than moving the camera's position, to give them the impression of a static security camera. I did definitely break this rule, however, as will be discussed later on. With that, on to our first secret. The first scene in this special was filmed in a different patch of woodland to where most of the others were. It is in fact only a few metres away from where Monochrome dies in Series 1. However, it looks completely different because when I filmed that, the leaves on the trees weren't fully out, but by the time I filmed this special, they were, leading to very poor lighting, and that wasn't the only problem. The main reason we never filmed here again was a problem we hadn't encountered since Series 1, biting midges. The amount of times one tried to land on me while I was puppeting a figure was ridiculous, so we cut our losses and left having filmed only one scene and a few other shots, one of which ended up in the final episode of Series 2. Another secret is that Ace was only named as a last-minute change because Jurassic Explored suggested the name when I unboxed the Safari Aloe which would go on to play Sally. Since she already had a name, I decided to give the name to the then unnamed Aloe character. In fact, he is simply referred to as the Allosaurus in the credits. I have been asked before if Ace is meant to be connected to Hatchet. The short answer is no, though he could theoretically be. Our next scene is one of my personal favourites, the riverside scene where we meet Splinter and Sally. A quick secret to reveal here is that at one point I considered going back to the same waterhole that Gigabyte is introduced at in Series 1, but decided I didn't want to lug a bunch of water out into the woods like I did the first time. Instead, I just filmed this scene in my garden under a bush and made the stream with a hose pipe. There is also this line of narration here to consider. Gigabyte has just learned one of the rules of this ecosystem. When the apex predator comes to drink, everyone gets out of the way. That is meant as foreshadowing for Gigabyte's aforementioned entrance in Series 1. We also get to see the dynamic between Splinter and his sister, which was obviously inspired by the hinted backstory for Kate in Mesozoic Isle. I have no clue how similar the stories of her and Sally are, because we never got to see Kate in MI, but the obvious difference between the two characters is that Kate was allegedly meant as an antagonist, whereas Sally, I would say, is more of a neutral side character. Interestingly enough, when I first came up with the idea of this special, I actually wanted a pair of Tyrannotitan in place of Splinter and Sally. One would be played by the PNSO figure, and the other by my custom model, but this was scrapped when I realised that the PNSO Tyrannotitan wouldn't be in stock and ED, everything dinosaur, for quite a while, so I wrote the Allosaurus Anax, or at the time Saurophaganax, pair in instead. and save Tyranna Titan for Series 3. We then cut to the next day where we see Gigabyte tackle a Borealis pelter and fail miserably. We also then get to see Splinter make the same task look easy, showing Gigabyte's current inexperience compared to the Forest Apex. We then get to the scene where, canonically, it's implied Gigabyte loses 2 of its fingers, although we don't see this because Ace knocks over the camera. We then get a quick explanation of the fact that Gigabyte hasn't been seen for over 7 years, which was necessary to explain how much he's grown since we last saw him. It also allows the viewer to speculate a bit on what happened to him in that time. I didn't want to show all of his backstory. We see Ace hunt a young Neovenator that was only included because I wanted to use that figure for something, before Sally shows up and briefly challenges him for the carcass. But as we all know, wherever she goes, Splinter follows. We then see one more case of Splinter not letting Sally feed before he is done eating, before a change in the music heralds the arrival of the special's titular character, before the epic final battle commences. Today, a score will be settled, and the title of Apex Predator will be decided. I also like that it was Splinter's actions towards his sibling that ultimately did him in. If she had joined the fight, I think there is a very good possibility that Gigabyte would have lost, but in my opinion, she was only ever going to make one choice. With Splinter vanquished, the main part of the special ends, but I did also include an after credits scene, where we see how Splinter's defeat affected PV even outside of the Forgotten Forest. We also get to see how Frost joins the plot, as it is revealed that he was displaced from his home by Sally. Fun fact, this is relevant to the current script I have for Series 4, but that may need to change in future. For now, that's all I'll say.